The clock sat in the farthest corner of the attic, hidden beneath a dusty tarp and surrounded by boxes no one had opened in years. It wasn't supposed to be there. No one in the family remembered bringing it into the house. Its frame was old and ornate, with curling black iron vines and Roman numerals that were mirror reversed, as if designed to confuse the eye. At first glance, it was just another relic of a forgotten time, something to be admired for its craftsmanship. But there was something unsettling about it, something cold in the air that surrounded it, a heaviness that pressed against the skin. When it was finally brought downstairs and placed on the mantel above the fireplace, no one noticed the change in the atmosphere right away. It was subtle at first. The tick-tock was louder than expected, a steady rhythm that didn't match. The pulse of the house, it ticked backward, counting in reverse, with each second feeling like a drop of water falling up instead of down. No one questioned it at first. They assumed it was broken, a decorative piece with no real function. But as the days passed, the backward ticking started to affect more than just the room it inhabited. Time inside the house became slippery. People would walk into a room and forget why they had gone there. Conversations repeated themselves without anyone noticing. Food uneaten was suddenly half gone. The sunlight through the windows seemed dimmer in the mornings and brighter at night. One could explain the sense of disorientation that settled into their daily lives. Dreams became vivid and confusing, filled with images of moments long past birthdays, funerals, old arguments. The clock continued to tick backward, always ticking, never stopping. And despite every attempt to ignore it, no one could bring themselves to move it. Each time someone tried, their hands trembled, their vision blurred, and a voice inside their head told them to stop. The clock seemed to resist being touched, almost as if it were alive. Its presence grew heavier, its backwards ticking louder, echoing through the walls, even when no one was in the same room. What once was just a strange object became the centerpiece of their uneasy time inside the house. Didn't just feel strange. It began to misbehave in ways no one could explain. At first, it was barely noticeable. A shadow would stretch the wrong way at noon, or steam from a cup of tea would rise and then sink back into the liquid. The television would flicker for a moment, showing a scene that hadn't yet aired, only to glitch and return to normal. Then it became more unsettling. Words spoken would echo before lips moved. People would enter a room and find it arranged the way it was years ago, complete with furniture that had been long discarded. The family began to experience déjà vu so frequently that they stopped trusting their own memories. Doors opened into hallways that no longer existed, or had been torn down and remodeled. In mirrors, reflections seemed slightly delayed or moved on their own. The clock on the mantel continued ticking backward, and it soon became clear that its rhythm wasn't just affecting perception, it was manipulating the very structure of time within the house. Photographs and picture frames began to change, showing younger versions of family members or people who had died years ago. The digital clocks in the kitchen blinked in reverse, stubbornly resetting themselves no matter how many times they were corrected. Outside, the sky seemed to follow a different cycle altogether, sometimes darkening in the middle of the day, or flooding the house with golden sunset light at dawn. Nothing behaved the way it should. Time had become elastic, pulling at moments, snapping them back, forcing everyone inside to relive things they barely remembered or had tried to forget. And through it all, the backward ticking never stopped. Like a countdown no one could decipher, but everyone could feel deep in their bones. It began with small things, names forgotten, birthdays mixed up, moments of confusion that were easy to dismiss. Then one day, the girl's front tooth was back in her smile, even though she'd lost it weeks earlier. Her parents blinked at her in silence, unable to make sense of it. Soon after, her speech changed. She began talking like a toddler again, her vocabulary shrinking by the day. The adults around her didn't notice at first. They'd forget she'd ever grown up. She started crawling again, and then one morning, she was just a baby in a crib. That had somehow reappeared in her room. The photographs on the walls adjusted themselves without sound or warning. Her latest school photo faded, replaced by an older one and then another, until it was just an image of a newborn, other family. Members began to suffer in different ways. One would lose hours of memory, suddenly unsure where they were or how they got there. Another found their hair darkening, their wrinkles smoothing out, their body moving in ways it hadn't in years. But with each regression came a blankness, a hollow behind the eyes, like something essential was being drained. The most terrifying part wasn't the physical changes, it was the emotional ones. People stopped recognizing each other. They stopped remembering who had once mattered. Conversations circled in loops. Laughter would turn to silence. It was as if their relationships were being unraveled thread by thread, love replaced by unfamiliarity, and no one could stop it. They tried to document what was happening, photos, recordings, journals, but each morning the evidence was gone or altered, rewritten to fit the new reality. Memories didn't just fade. They were replaced with versions that never existed. As if the house itself was correcting their history, the house itself began to change. Walls shifted position without sound or warning. A room that had once been converted into an office was suddenly a nursery again, complete with faded wallpaper, a rocking chair that creaked on its own, and a faint scent of baby powder lingering in the air. Furniture rearranged itself to match. Older layouts, windows disappeared or removed locations. The layout of the house reverted in pieces, slowly unraveling years of renovations like a spool of time winding in reverse. No one could explain it, and each change made them question what was real. Outside, the world followed the same path. The mailbox changed back to an older design. A neighbor's house that had burned down reappeared one morning, whole and unscathed. Trees lost their growth, shrinking by inches every day. Leaves returned to bare branches, and then buds faded back into the bark. A garden that once bloomed with fresh vegetables was now just a patch of tilled dirt, and soon after it was overgrown with weeds. Even the sky looked wrong. The sun didn't rise where it was supposed to. Birds flew backward in the sky, their wings beating in reverse rhythm. Rain fell upward during storms, splashing back into clouds like film being rewound. Streetlights flickered with colors no one remembered, casting shadows that pointed toward the light instead of away. Cars aged in driveways, their paint dulling, their parts rusting, until they vanished completely as if they'd never been purchased. Technology failed. Phones became brick-like and unusable. Televisions turned into static boxes, and radios played music that hadn't aired in decades. Every part of the environment twisted into something older, stranger, and more distant, and it all centered around the clock on the mantle, still ticking in reverse with steady, unnatural precision. The clock never stopped ticking. With every reverse second, it drew something invisible out of the room light, warmth, memory, presence. It didn't matter how many times someone tried to cover it, unplug it, or even smash it. The glass wouldn't crack, the hands wouldn't. Still, it ticked on as if following its own rules, untouched by the laws of time or resistance. But it wasn't just counting backward randomly. There was a purpose behind its rhythm, something deliberate in every motion of its brass hands as they swept counterclockwise across the face. Each midnight, it struck 12 backward chimes. Not a second before, not a second after. Each chime echoed through the house like a pulse, and with every passing night, that pulse seemed to strip away another layer of reality. First, people forgot details, names, events, entire relationships. Then the fabric of the house changed. Then the neighborhood. Then the outside world. And still the clock ticked. Eventually, there were no more photographs, no more records, no more proof of what once was. Even memories became unreliable, flickering like dying bulbs in the minds of those who still remained. Faces blurred, voices distorted, rooms felt like voids where nothing had ever happened. The ticking grew louder, echoing in their ears, whether they were near the clock or far from it dot, and then the numbers on the clock began to shift. Slowly, the reversed numerals melted into a blank face, leaving behind no way to tell how much time was left. But they all felt it. A heavy pressure in the chest, an overwhelming sense of something final approaching. The atmosphere thickened like the air itself was holding its breath. The countdown was nearing its end, and though no one knew what would happen when it reached 0, the silence waiting on the other side felt colder than death.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.